What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Make It Custom. I'm Carl Fisher, and I'm back on the 1939 Lincoln Zephyr 3-window chopped coupe from a 4-door conversion project. What I'm going to do today, I believe, is make a cross member for the trunk, where the hinges are going to mount, how all that's going to work. That's my goal, and that's hopefully what this video is going to be about. So don't forget to like, click subscribe, hit notifications. Let's get into it. I will admit, it took me way too long to find this stuff, but this is what we're working with. Ooh, glove box doors. These are the trunk lid hinges off of the 4-door. And as you can see, one is different from the other. One has also been repaired. This has a bit of a scabby welt repair onto it. And I don't know if it's okay the way it is. I hope it is. I don't know. It must be. It must have been working. Adds character, I guess. But these are the pads that the hinges mount to. So we're going to have to get this attached into our inner structure somehow and make it strong enough to have the torsion force on that cross member, whatever it is. So it'll be going across this way, and the weight of it is going to be twisting on it. That's what I mean by torsion force. So it is obviously kind of assembled to fit the 4-door. So right off the bat, I'll probably end up cutting it into pieces. Also, this zigzag pattern obviously went directly onto a stamped piece of, inner structure on the 4-door. We're obviously not gonna do whatever work it would take to make this exact shape so that this fits onto whatever our cross member is. So I'm gonna cut that off too and come up with some kind of game plan to incorporate this pad into an all new structure that we're gonna create, because we don't have anything to go off of. So what I'm thinking is, well, first off, the actual mount on the trunk lid is right here. So what we can do is we can kind of eyeball where these hinges go, which is, it's right there. That's where that mounting pad is gonna have to be. So it looks to be 2.5 inches past where our trunk lid ends. Back here, that's where that cross member needs to be. So we're gonna start by mapping out across like a whole another cross member like this. So because we built this one, we know how we're gonna make this one. It's gonna match, it might as well. And we're gonna have that flat angle, whatever it needs to be for that trunk lid, that's the angle that we're gonna make that on, so that we can incorporate this piece into ours. So what we'll probably end up doing is we'll just cut this straight across and weld it flat onto whatever we make. I think that makes the most sense. That way we have our threaded bungs. It's got these extra stamped little creases in this plate that make it a bit stronger. And that is a little bit thicker than the 16 gauge that inner structure usually is. So this is like a critical piece to use. And if we had to make our own, so be it, but we would want it to be a little bit thicker than 16 gauge to have that strength that it needs to be to hold the weight of a trunk lid. Like on a small hinge like that, the force on that hinge is actually quite a bit. So it's important that that is strong and will last 1,000 trunk opens, so it can't be flimsy. We want that to be strong. And what we're also going to do to make it strong, because that trunk lid is torsionally trying to do this to our cross member, what's going to stop it, especially when it's as thick as this hinge is, all the way down there, that is going to be able to twist quite easily without some other kind of reinforcement. So we could triangulate that somehow. What I'm probably gonna end up doing is whatever we build here that goes straight across, I'll make a brace that goes straight back to this one. So it'll be like a vertical C-channel maybe we'll put some dimple dies in it again and spot weld it from these lips of these cross members, and then that way it will keep the trunk lid weight on the hinges from being able to torsionally mess with our cross members. So I think it's gonna be like at least 3 pieces. We're gonna have like a bulkhead that goes across that our hinge plates will mount to, those stamped pieces I was talking about, and then we'll have 2 tiebacks into our earlier build. I know that was long-winded, hopefully it made sense, but I think I've got it all out of my system now, and I can go ahead and make another bulkhead just like that over here, and then start tying it back. That's all I can do, 1 piece at a time. Okay, I forgot to mention, and I'm sure a lot of you are asking this question, why the torsional force, what about that is gonna actually force on the hinges? These hinges, this is what I forgot to mention, 1 hinge out of the 2, one of them looks different, not only because this one's been damaged, but this one holds the weight of the trunk lid. This hinge does. This one doesn't. This one's just like a doot, doot, doot. There's nothing there, right? It's just a normal hinge. So there is no prop rod for this trunk. This hinge does it. So when you open the trunk, this thing's stuck right now. There we go. When you open the trunk, how does it go? There we go. It locks itself open. You see that? So you'd open the trunk and then you would set it down on a lock. So now it's locked. So now the whole weight of this whole trunk is not shared by 2 hinges, it's only this 1 hinge. So this side especially needs the reinforcement. So that entire weight of the trunk, which is not small on this thing, is forcing like this. That's what we have to build for. And then you pick it up and then it allows it to, oh, is this another level? Did we reach another level? Hold on, there we go. Yeah, then you can close it. So anyway, hopefully that made sense. I'm gonna start screwing around with this. I'm not sure, but I might even try to flatten this out, like get it dead flat. I wonder if we can do that just by like torching the crap out of it and then just holding it over the edge of like this table or something. And because it would be nice to have that flange to spot weld, like it goes with the way we have been fabricating everything. Like it's not just like a T-joint. We could still spot weld it again, but yeah. Okay, so at this point, I've got this kind of cleaned up. I was happy to be able to kind of trim the edges and make this look like it was stamped that way. I was actually kind of surprised, to be honest, how easily that all came out. I knew I could do it, but it almost seemed like it wanted to go back to flat. It was, yeah, it was cool to be able to just manipulate that flange and keep it sort of factory looking like that is a part that was on the car. So anyway, I'm at the point now where I'm going to take these hinges and just kind of clean the threads and bolt them up underneath the trunk lid. I'm gonna crawl inside there, bring a light, and get those threads cleaned up, get these bolted to the trunk lid, and then we are gonna make a decision on what that bulkhead panel or what that crossmember brace is gonna look like that's gonna traverse across the that upper lip of the trunk to mount these two. And I forgot to mention, I did dissect these thinking that I could reuse them later. That's why these ears are gonna stay on here. I think it's nice that this piece here, its job is to just kind of brace this hinge to the trunk lip. That's a connection that keeps that gap from being able to flex at all because the hinge is directly connected to the trunk gap. So I think that I would like to, even if I have to manipulate the angle or do something to be able to use this piece the same way and kind of lap it into this bracket and tie it back into our trunk gutter, that would be ideal. So I'm saving these, and they already have a hole for, you know, when this comes up, or actually, sorry, the hole is for that, that little spot. Anyway, yeah, saving that. All right, so we have made a couple of panels here, and maybe you can totally understand what's going on, but picture those two stamped hinge plates mounting here and here. This is looking at the back from the open trunk. This is what you're gonna see. Those spot welded plates will go here, those stamped threaded plates. And then bracing back to our package tray will be these tapered stamped pieces. They will be flanged to here, like so. They should go in there somehow, there. They'll be flanged like that. We'll spot weld through. This will brace forward in the car to the package tray. So what I think the next step will be would be to actually attach this to our stamped pieces that are attached to the trunk. So now we're kind of working from the trunk back. We've got the trunk, we've got our hinges, we've got our hinge plates, and then we're gonna put on this bulkhead. Once that's on, then we can fit these two pieces. We've got a little bit of adjustment with like the slotted holes in the trunk hinges and stuff, but yeah, just one piece at a time. One step at a time. So I'm gonna try and get that piece in next and spot welded, and then these two tiebacks to our package tray. Yeah, let's go. All right, so we got these pieces in right now, and it's looking pretty good. They are pretty big and thick, but I guess there's tons of trunk room in here, and what am I really transporting? I have no worries that way. So everything is fully clamped tight. I've got kind of spot weld holes exposed everywhere where I can get to. We've loosened the trunk hinges a couple of times and let that relax. So with everything held as it is right now, if it doesn't move, it should be more or less good. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, so I think I'm just gonna start spot welding this stuff in. You know, we still have quite a bit to do here. We still have to make this piece that comes to the wheel well, like to hold this up. You know, the only thing holding this structure up right now is these bolts, like the trunk. Like that's the only thing holding this up. It's not, nothing's attached to the skin. There's nothing like holding this from the bottom. This is all just kind of hanging off of these bolts, right? So we still have to tie this whole structure in to the wheel well. And I'm curious now, I'm thinking about whether or not we should be doing that now before we lock all this in, or if we can just go ahead and just kind of seal the deal on all these spot welds. I'm pretty sure we can. I don't really see a reason why we can't. The other beauty about everything we've done so far is that all these welds are still pretty much exposed. Like we're not really covering up any areas that are going to be welded. There's a couple welds on this side of this cross member that we'll be able to get from here. So I'm excited to not have to, you know, worry about that when we are final kind of hammering and stuff. I think I'm going to just throw a couple of spot welds on. Maybe I won't do the whole thing yet, like leave it a little bit flimsy, and then just so we can take these clamps away and start working on whatever this is going to look like. We are spot welded in place, and this is incredibly strong. I was under there like hanging off of it. It will definitely hold up that trunk. So the next step is to figure out something to tie into here, something simple, something that won't be in the way, and something that just kind of braces over to land on top of this inner wheel tub that is pretty strong, especially being on a bit of a curve. You can see our other main brace that goes to the door pillar is also going to the wheel tub. So that is a nice strong spot that we can brace to. So we're gonna just make some kind of shape and build opposite pieces for both sides. And then I think that we technically can try the trunk. Maybe we should put those other pieces on that we saved from like that brace to the trunk lip. But other than that, it should be solid enough to actually try the hinges and cut the trunk free. Okay, so we've got a bit of a curve here. I gave it one relief cut because there's an incredible amount of stretch that needs to happen to get this curve so we can fit that wheel well. So I'm just going after it with 2 different hammers. I've got a higher crown one because we've got this curve happening. And then when it bulges up on top where it's flat, I've got my flatter hammer to just control a little bit of the distortion. See, when I correct this, this comes back up. It's because this flange needs to stretch, or this area needs to shrink to allow what we're trying to ask it to do to happen. And then we'll give it a test fit. There, oh yeah, that's looking good. Okay, we've got to get this trimmed out of the way so we can actually fit up there, but this is looking really good. Okay, I'm gonna trim a little bit of that away. I guess I kind of overestimated. I should have actually cut this away. I tried to estimate how much there was up there, but I was off by a lot. Wow. How did I go so wrong? I meant to break this all the way up to here. That might be a redo. Okay, new day. Thought about this. I am increasingly not loving how this piece was made. Not only does it not fit, but I think that it could have been just made a little bit better. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna do is kind of round the top of this rather than just have this tapered and tapered. And just like try it again, make a better template, make a better piece, and learn from my mistakes. So this is the new template. There's a couple of differences between this and this. And it's actually gonna change the way that, it's made. So this one has bent flanges, they're straight, that was easy. And then, I struggled a little bit on this, but this is, having another curved flange. I'm gonna ditch that idea completely and then go with curved flanges like everywhere, basically. This whole top piece, this whole bottom piece, and this side, but I'm gonna make it totally differently. So this is actually kind of easier. So what I'm gonna do, and I think it's gonna look a lot better too, is I'm gonna step this also underneath the connection point here. And what I mean by that is like I want it to end up being flush, but our lap joint where we are going to spot weld, that is actually stepped under by the thickness of the material so that that becomes a flush kind of connection. So I think that's gonna look cool too, but that's like something super simple. You just like run that through the bead roller with a little step on it. How we're gonna do these curved flanges is that we're actually gonna just weld right on the edge all the way and just try and keep it super cold and not super hot and just MIG weld like tack, 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 and then grind a nice little radius. It is 16 gauge, so we do have like a little bit of material thickness on our side so that we can control the heat a little bit. It shouldn't really be doing too much bending. And if it did bend, we have the shrinker stretcher, right? We could just do this. Don't get me wrong, we could actually like just tip all these flanges in the 16 gauge also, but I've got like a 1-inch lip going on all this stuff. If I had like a 1/2-inch lip, I would definitely just tip it, but like, I don't know, 1-inch lip is kind of a lot. So I think it's gonna be an easy way to do it. It's gonna look really good, and the top radius will kind of follow so that when you're looking in the open trunk, that cross member with the hinges attached to it and everything kind of looks somewhat decentish, you know what I mean? Like it's supposed to be there. It looks like it's how you would have manufactured it a little bit. That other piece it's good and whatever, but it's kind of like mailing it in. I find this will look a lot better. So anyway, gonna start carving that out and getting her done. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve, just that bit of a step so that this can slip behind our current panel there. The other thing I'll say is if we're trying to make this piece and weld these flanges on, you got to make sure that you can control this to be flat. Like I want to make sure that this is sitting flat, that this flange is nice and flat against that. If it's all kind of tweaked around, like now when it's in front of you and you've got this plate to hammer against or whatever you're hammering against, piece of flat bar, anything, like you need to check this now, because if it's all kind of contorted and we go to weld a flange on there, we're going to weld that distortion into it. So you want to be able to trust that this is flat when you put this strip on next, right? Like we're going to bend these strips like this, and they're a nice flat edge, so we want to keep the flatness. And then we're also going to step these down a little bit so that we can get a spot weld in the flanges as well. Okay, that actually worked super well. Stayed nice and flat. The heat didn't go crazy. I got impatient near the end and just like did short stitches to finish it off, and those are kind of like the hottest little spots that you see. You can kind of see on the inside we got definitely good penetration. We're gonna be able to grind most of that weld off into a little bit of a radius. Nothing crazy, like a pretty sharp radius, but that's what it's gonna that's what I'm gonna do next, is just use some like 80 grit on a roll lock and just go flat, like grind everything flat both ways, and then start with a bit of a taper grind and then smooth it out round. It's kind of what I find is like the easiest way is to make yourself two flat planes and then start with like a 45-degree kind of grind. Then you can see how even your 45-degree grind is. It's easier to blend the rest of it in to look like a consistent taper. So I'm gonna do that. And then we're gonna have to make some like little landing pads for this side also once these are fitted, and then punch some holes so that we can spot weld that in, and of course put our dimple dies. Okay, so to grind that radius, all I've really done here is I've taken 80 grit on 3-inch roll lock, and I did just like a 45-degree pass, and then I did like, you know, split that on top, split that on top. So essentially like 3 different angles. That's all I cut into it, and then I just ran it over with like 80 grit on the DA. So it's pretty simple, straightforward. Like, you don't have to have a whole bunch of different steps of grinding and finishing and stuff. I just go like 80 grit on a roll lock, 80 grit on a DA, and it's like pretty much as good of a surface as you could ever want for priming or for whatever, right? But it just smooths itself out like into a very nice radius with just having, you know, like this side has the bevels on it. That's 3 different little grinds. And then after you hit it with the DA, you get that nice corner. So it's pretty simple, like to make it a nice finish like that. So I'm gonna keep doing that. We'll drill these holes and pop the dimples into them, and then put a bunch of holes in here so that we can spot weld from the inside. I think that'll be the easiest, like spot weld into the outer piece from these. So these will have the holes in it. We can do it from the backside. It'll kind of look tidy because you won't see the spot welds. They'll be hidden from the trunk. Yeah, we'll keep going. And then the last thing we're gonna do is make those little tabs for here that will actually spot weld to the wheel tub in the car. Here they are. Look at how flat they stayed. I did not even cool them at all, actually. Oh yeah, good, we're on. So I didn't use the air to cool them at all, and they stayed pretty flat just by kind of welding them together. And yeah, there they are. So let's have a little test fit. Yeah. Oh yeah, this side I have to cut out still. I have to cut this out. Look at that. Ooh, I like it. I likes it. Look at that, little step in. Looks all factory and such. Cool. Way more better than that. What is that? What is that? What is this weird split in your distorted flange? What is that? Ugh. Way more better. So I still got to make this little piece here, and because it's on a funny angle, I waited till now so that I'll be able to maybe take a piece of tape or something. Maybe I'll just like put a bunch of tape on the fender itself, the inner fender itself, or the wheel well, whatever you want to call it, and then I'll put this over top of it and then just trace all the way around, and then it'll come off as whatever weird shape it's got to be bent into that relatively easily. I'll weld it to this edge of this piece and then spot weld it in here like everything else. And yeah, that'll be that. I believe that once that piece is in, and we just finish, you know, spot welding everything, finish putting spot welds into the trunk bracket, lock it all up, and we should be able to, oh, no. We need to tie in the hinge with those little pieces still. There's those two little pieces that tie the hinge in. Yeah, okay, never mind. Don't jump the gun, but we are almost at the point of being able to open the trunk lid. Okay, so the only real difference in the flange, according to the tape, is it's just got a bit of a radius on it. So I just took some of that 1-inch strip and I just shrank a little radius on it till it got close to what the tape is. And that should, in theory, become this piece right here. Look at it, it's even cut out. I can't one-handed bend that, but I'm gonna fit that onto there. We'll get a tack on it, weld those up, do what I said, get her done, punch some holes, weld her in. I got the trunk opening. This is flimsy because I didn't put those pieces on like I said I would. They are completely different on the 4-door than they are the 2-door, so I'm gonna have to make my own. But I just kind of couldn't wait, so I popped the trunk open, and it is super solid. The whole idea of, oh, there it is. There we go. Okay, at first it didn't work, but it holds itself open. It is pretty solid. Like the flex itself is in the hinges, if you can see that. Like our bulkhead is not moving, it's the hinges themselves. Milestone moment. Check out how those fit. I love that. Look at that. If you guys didn't know, this is the spare tire, and it hinges out of the way for you to put your groceries in. Check that out. It's a Zephyr thing. The tire kind of just like flips right over. You can load the trunk with whatever you need. Put the tire back in, it sits right there just below the deck lid. So I guess I go up one more. Yeah, and it releases. Too cool. Yeah, we have a trunk. That's something. I just ran over a Clico on the way down. Look at that. Whoops, that's carnage actually. That's where I'm gonna leave this video. I'm stoked on how far the fabrication got. That's like a ton more of the inner structure done. There's a few little pieces like that brace to the lip. And then of course that whole lip that has to be fabricated for our trunk seal. That's gonna be something that I'm hoping to do on our little profiling machine, making some dies for it and figuring that out. But yeah, another big step forward, being able to open that trunk lid and work on that area. So thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you wanna get more connected, Patreon is a thing. It's $4 a month. We give away all our DXF files for free on there. All the content's free on there, ad-free, everything. And there's some chat rooms and ways to message about your projects and that sort of thing. So if you're interested, Patreon. Also, japhandskustoms.com for any merchandise or upcoming classes. And we'll see you next time on Make It Kustom. Thanks a lot. See you later.